We got a term sheet for 30 million valuation, but that was coming with some clauses that would give away even operational control of the company, which was not, I would say, ideal, especially when you
Right.
look at the stage of the product and how we are growing the product and how we are working with the product. This having the freedom to move fast, to break things, rebuild without permission, without asking anyone if we are allowed to hire the right people without going through the whole process or approval by any board members or VCs. So considering all of that, we decided to not move forward with that round. But on top, I also have to say that we are profitable. We have free cash flow. So that was also another route to just reinvest what we were generating in terms of money from UX Pilot into growing the product. And of course, to some extent, it also helped us to be more efficient and so on. Happy to tell you more on that as well. The idea is to have that percentage. If that percentage is over 40%, then it means that we kind of reach a product market fit at this level or today. And then segment that group and see what are the requests or what are the features they would like to see. So that would already clean up a little bit the noise, because some people might not even feel the pain of not using the tool, but they still want to have this or that feature. So going through this method is also a very effective way to kind of focus on what would help your core users and your people who are actually valuing and seeing value in the product.
So I think everyone's LinkedIn feed is full of the same type of advice when it comes to basically jumpstarting your startup operations, which is, put together a pitch deck and apply for funding. And my today's guest has actually done quite the opposite and succeeded. And I would like Adam to walk us through the decision that he made not to go for funding, how that has, how the decision came around and how it has unraveled so far.
All right. So first, thank you for having me here. Maybe I can give you a little bit of background about the product until we hit the moment of going for a first round, and then why we decided to not move forward with that round. So we started the product as a side project, so it was all bootstrapped, and we grew the product for about a year until the moment where we decided to potentially go after funding. And basically what happens is that we got a bunch of people interested. We got a term sheet for 30 million valuation, but that was coming with some clauses that would give away even operational control of the company, which was not, I would say, ideal, especially when you
Right.
look at the stage of the product and how we are growing the product and how we are working with the product. This having the freedom to move fast, to break things, rebuild without permission, without asking anyone if you're allowed to hire the right people without going through the whole process or approval by any board members or VCs. So considering all of that, we decided to not move forward with that round. But on top, I also have to say that we are profitable. We have free cash flow. So that was also another route to just reinvest what we were generating in terms of money from UX Pilot into growing the product. And of course, to some extent, it also helped us to be more efficient and so on. Happy to tell you more on that as well.
Is this your first rodeo as a founder?
Yes.
And are you a tech one or a non-tech one?
Design, but became tech. I coded the first version of UX Pilot.
All right. Okay. What made you realize that you couldn't really design inside someone else's system anymore? And did you plan to build software, or did you really like stumbled into it while fixing a client's pain, so to say?
It was an internal tool. We were exploring things. So I had an agency, but at that time, and that was at the beginning of the whole AI thing. We were exploring what we can do with AI and design process or UX process. So we experimented with a few things, like how we can apply it to workshops, to research, to early phases of a design project, and so on. And those were basically the early steps that led later on to UX Pilot, even though UX Pilot doesn't necessarily do whatever things we were doing at that time. So it was very much like just an internal need within the agency that we were kind of exploring.
So when did you decide to go basically like full time, full capacity on the product? Was it a certain, like, what was the signal
Mm-hmm.
that you based the decision to go full time on?
So we built something, and then there was like a 2 months period in between where nothing much happened, and we were like just observing. We had 2-3 users, I think paying users, who used the tool. Some users just tested out, and I was not even sure if that was worth the time to spend more resources or even my own time on it. And I was very much about like just move on and start exploring something else, maybe a different kind of product. And then I had some different kind of interests from different kind of people around December 2 years ago, or less than 2 years ago. They were kind of just exploring like what we were doing. Like we were just talking about AI and UX, and that was something new and that was interesting to them. Or they were like looking for potential tools that could solve this whole ideation design generation, even though it was not phrased so clearly. It was not like I'm looking for a tool to generate designs. It was like something very broad and just out of pure interest. And even though it was not very clear, even though it was not certain that this would become UX Pilot, it was enough signal to me to just decide, take a year, build as much as possible, spend as much as possible on the product, and see where it goes. So that was very much like the first signal that I decided to pause the agency and just go all in on this idea.
So those people that you got feedback from last year, do they still fit the ICP, ideal customer persona of your users today? Or was it more like it was just a really good hunch, but the people who are using the product today are a completely different breed?
Some, yes, some were actually designers. So definitely.
And I would speak for myself here, guys. So basically, I came across UX Pilot when I was having a really hard time with Lovable because I'm a non-technical person, and I've, as you know, have prototyped or vibe coded my solution quite in an advanced way, but I've always had troubles getting Lovable to flesh out smaller details. And I started looking for literally like Lovable for design, and that's how I found UX Pilot. I think I actually asked ChatGPT what would be the tool that would help me, wrestle with Lovable. And so what I started doing was experimenting, obviously, with prompting in UX Pilot. It works for me quite in a similar way compared to my experience in Lovable. And then I actually started hand drawing the designs and would also feed them there as well. And honestly, I was mind blown. I was like, holy shit, there's a lot more precision. It works much faster, and it just seems like listens to me more compared to Lovable. So I would then take the designs that the UX Pilot has produced and I would feed them to Lovable as a high fidelity prototype. So if anybody interested in this tech stack, I would like in my use case, please like go ahead and do that if this is the same struggle that you're having. Tell me a little bit more about how the product has evolved and how did you know along the way what feedback you could trust, what feedback you should ignore? Because I think this is like the main struggle of all the early stage companies. There is a lot of feedback, and it's very hard to filter through it to understand whether this is actually a signal or a noise.
True. So as I said, when we started, the product was mainly focused around research, workshops, and so on. And during one of the very early interviews I had with a user, the question was, does it also generate wireframes? And that kind of led me to thinking deeply about this question, like what it means to take an idea and generate wireframes. What are the tools out there? What's feasible even at that time? So I started exploring and kind of saw like the only AI sort of powered tools were just changing the content, the copy. They were still using a template, a predefined template or predefined blocks. They were not truly using AI, or they were not truly
Right.
flexible. So that was like a great opportunity, like to explore and see, can we really build something like this? Can we build or fine tune a model that would generate these designs and layouts? Obviously, it was not as simple as straightforward, but that was kind of the starting point that led to improvements and iterations. Then we went from wireframe to high fidelity design, like just not just the structure of the page or layout, but also all the look and feel, the UI, and all the colors and everything. In terms of feedback, I think there are, for sure, there are different kind of requests or different kind of ideas, but there is also a vision behind the product, like where we want the product to be. And when we see actually there's a lot of feedback backing that vision or that idea, then it's a no-brainer to just move forward with that idea. But also something else we're doing, we apply the product market fit survey, like asking users how would they feel if there was no UX pilot anymore, and kind of see what's the
Oh,
percentage
I
of
would feel really bad.
yeah, so kind of see the percentage of people that would feel really bad, and kind of the idea is to have that percentage. If that percentage is over 40%, then it means that we kind of reach a product market fit at this level or today. And then segment that group and see what are the requests or what are the features they would like to see. So that would already clean up a little bit the noise, because some people might not even feel the pain of not using the tool, but they still want to have this or that feature. So going through this method is also a very effective way to kind of focus on what would help your core users and your people who are actually valuing and seeing value in the product.
Okay, I have two follow-up questions on
Mm-hmm.
that. And the first one is probably more of a statement, which I think, guys, this is important. So I think most of the pre-seed founders get taught that the only signal is monetization. But I
Mm-hmm.
think what Adam is bringing to the table here is that actually the NPS score, so the Net Promoter Score, maybe even has a heavier weight compared to monetization, or you should at the very least overlay those to see if people who are paying you today would actually be disappointed if the product went away, or maybe you're just kind of like a nice have for them. And I mean, I think we all know tons of people who keep paying for certain subscriptions but do not necessarily use them, so that's a person that's going to churn anyways. So that was more so I just wanted to point out how important that is what Adam just shared. And my question, which would really lead us to one of my favorite or maybe least favorite bias in the decision making process, which is called confirmation bias. And if you have been listening to the last few episodes, you would know what I'm talking about. But basically, it's when you have already made a decision and you're just looking for the evidence to back it up. So what Adam just shared in a way that, we already had a vision for the product and some of the feedback actually validated it. So I know this will probably be a tough question, but how do you know whether it is confirmation bias, as in you already made a decision, you just trying, to back it up with some evidence, or it's actually going to move you in the right direction?
Well, we would definitely align that with metrics as well. So you brought up monetization, but there are also other metrics like time, the usage of the product, generation. That would also confirm that do we see more usage by implementing certain features or certain improvements, and also who are the people requesting or asking about certain features. For example, for quite some time, we had this um, dilemma. Are we going to fully support design systems? Are we going to fully support import from, or do we need to spend more resources on improving these types of features and so on? And if you look at certain segments, maybe even like around founders, they're mainly interested in starting from scratch. So they don't even have a design system or they don't have a Figma file to take care of. So it might not be something that we would focus on, or uh, might not be worth spending resources there. But then recently, we also started onboarding a lot of teams, a lot of design teams from
Okay.
bigger companies and enterprise. And the core things they're always asking is, how can we have an existing product, we have a design system, how can we support that? Even though we have this feature right now, which is to some extent limited to 100 components and so on, they want to have more flexibility, they want to have higher accuracy and so on. So that was something that we saw then confirmed by this subset of users. So that's something we kind of reprioritize how to allow them to import their whole design system from Figma into UXPod and then start generating designs based on that.
Okay, so Adam is underlining another very important element in decision-making process, making sure that you cohort or segment the feedback by, say, user types, user levels, etc. Because when you generally when you look at the like high-level data, you can really drown in the noise, and there's just going to be a lot of it. So again, that's a very good example of how you can get to the bottom of good data is by really segmenting who the data is coming from. How big is your team today?
Um, 20, 23, 24 people.
Do you have somebody among those 23 people that plays like a devil advocate with you?
I mean, we try, even when discussing features, there's always someone who's trying to see the other side of things. So it's not just one person, but it really depends on cases or situations, if it's even a growth strategy, if it's a product and so on. So we always try to see like what would be what would be the other side and how we can look at this amazing opportunity, but also what could go wrong.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Um, was there ever a decision that you made actually to remove something from the product? So maybe something that you've been working on for a while and then you guys realize that actually this doesn't make any sense?
Yeah. So for a while we had some of the early features, legacy features on the web, like some simple things like generating interview questionnaires, or what else we had. Yeah, some of the kind of feature research related features. And interesting is that they were there, and like if you would look at it, you would say, well, we have more features, so it's more interesting. But actually, what happened is that some of those features were not um, supported, or we were not like improving them, so they were still like from this early phases of the product. So people would test basically a bunch of features, and they would come across those features that were also actually free for our users, and they would see like the output was not really interesting, or it was not as uh, great as like generating a whole layout or a flow of screens. So they would complain about those things, and they would find actually less value from the product because of those additional features that we just left there. So we decided just to remove them because anyhow, not many people were using them, or just a source of complaint. So now basically we kind of try to direct everyone into this core experience, which is generating designs or importing elements from Figma and then generating designs to kind of make sure like we're truly providing and we're focusing or double downing on the core value of the product.
Gotcha. So my use case is that does that fit into one of your standard ones, or am I an edge case?
We have, I would say, let's say if we want to simplify, we have, I think, 3 use cases. So we have people generating layouts and then taking those layouts into a coding tool like Cursor, Lovable, Bolt, and so on, and they create and they make them functional. They do that inside UXPilot because obviously, as you said, you can explore things much faster. Right. You can explore 5 different versions, and the quality, the output is much better, and so on. So that's definitely a core use case we have. Then we have people generating, starting from scratch, generating design ideas, and they bring them usually back into either Figma or export them or share them within UXPilot. So these are like product people just looking to get feedback on early phases of a feature of a product, and they just want to have a better way to communicate their ideas instead of writing a long PRD. They just share 5 wireframes, and that's it. That's clear, like what they're looking for. And then finally, we have designers who are usually responsible to import like their design system, or someone within that team is responsible. They import their design system into UXPilot, and they share that model with everyone within the team. And then they start generating designs on brand following those components. And they can then support an existing product instead of always starting from scratch.
Which use case do you think has the biggest potential for UXPilot in the next 6 months?
Well, if you put things within a design process, usually in the classical design process, you have this divergent thinking and convergent thinking. So some of the features I mentioned are actually part of this divergent thinking, where you just explore, and then usually you dabble down and you kind of converge into an actual or a specific solution. So I don't think you can really break that apart. Otherwise, you would just break the design process apart. But if we really want to say like just focus on one core feature in terms of product feature, not just design process, then I would say the design system, because it's a unique feature that we have. And it, instead of just helping you start from scratch or forcing you to start from scratch, you can basically support your product. You don't need to write crazy long prompts because you already have design from a design language. You already have everything there. So it's kind of truly speed up the design process.
So the reason I'm asking this question is, I think, is because I think this is like a classic dilemma that every founder faces at some point. It's like, okay, I cannot appeal to everyone, even though I have several validated use cases. So who do I double down on? So do you have some insights or wisdom that you can share on that with the listeners?
Yeah, so coming back to the whole design system, we see that from teams. So we're not talking about like single licenses anymore, but like design teams within big organizations or even smaller companies or startups. So that's very much the core use case they're looking for, supporting their design system.
Speaking of design systems, so how do you balance your own focus between being obviously like a chief design officer and a chief executive officer? Because I feel like that's you're very close to the product, but you also need to take care of all the business side of things. So how do you balance that?
Yeah, I try to delegate as much as possible. I think that's the right answer. But yeah, especially even on the product side, I'm quite involved. For example, for this whole to make the design system work, it's not just about the experience of the product, but also there is a lot of R&D going on that I'm also involved. A lot of know-how how a design system is structured, is used. So again, depending on those type of things, I'm quite involved there. And there are things where, let's say, we want to create a team plan upgrade experience. So that's something that exists. That's something you can generate with UXPilot. There are existing patterns. I don't need to necessarily be involved. So I usually delegate those types of tasks. But I think I still believe that our team is small enough to not try to uh, define roles in a strict way. So to give freedom and flexibility to people in case they want to move across certain roles or certain tasks, then they should be able to do that, because that would just make things much more efficient and faster.
So you're not yet dealing with operational bottlenecks, right? Due to the size of the team.
There are cases we do, definitely. On the development side, for example, when something requires front end, back end, AI, and QA and whatever, then suddenly like 4 or 5 people involved, and then sometimes the communication is not as smooth as possible as if we're just one person doing all of that. So definitely there are certain things there, but we're kind of trying to review after. We don't have necessarily sprint planning, but after big releases, kind of review what went wrong, what we could improve, and kind of try to improve things even further.
I can say from my own experience at your team size, it's a rare occurrence actually, because most of the smaller teams that I worked with in the past actually they very rarely did postmortems outside of just the development team. So kudos to you guys, because I think that's a very healthy practice. Is what will definitely set you up for like smoother operations in the future, or at least statistics say that.
Okay.
Um, Decision fatigue. How do you choose? Because you just spoke about that you try to delegate as much as possible. How do you choose what to delegate, maybe what to automate, and what really requires your full attention?
I think it's all about like what's usually um, the cost um, associated with that decision, um, and also what are the risk basically. So uh, if it's just maybe a layout that might not be as perfect as possible, then it's just a simple layout. Nothing crazy will happen if that's implemented. If the button is maybe in the wrong color or wrong shade, we can definitely delegate those things. But if we're talking about a feature that will affect certain teams or enterprise users, then probably we need to delegate that to someone with more experience, more knowledge of the product, and so on and so forth. So it's all, I think, depends on uh, the quality of the required decision, the cost associated, and also what are the risks. Also, sometimes we also run a lot of experiments, and actually a lot of things can be handled when it's not clear with which direction to go. We can just A/B test and run experiments on top, and then get get data, get the direction of the data, and then take those decisions as well, instead of like trying to forecast kind of or predict what would be the best or what would be the best solution.
Again, I have to say you have a very exceptional decision-making hygiene, and that's probably coming from design thinking. Because again, a lot of early stage founders that I worked with in the past, it's more like just putting out fires and rapid decision-making. So, do you think your very structured decision-making process is potentially coming from your overall design background?
I don't know.
Or is it just something, is that how you've been basically your entire life, or as much as you can remember of your life?
Maybe. I mean, I think I'm sometimes all over the place when it comes to things. So maybe it's just because I'm aware that things can go crazy. I'm trying to also be more structured around them, but also I'm working with really great team members who can be pragmatic when I am not. So that also helps a lot. Like when I talk to my CTO, when I talk to my head of growth, um, sometimes I'm like, let's do this and that. And they're like, maybe we can prioritize this or that, or I can then play that role for them as well in case like we have too many things. So I think that also helps a lot when you work with great people.
How did you find those great people? Were they maybe like referrals or just people that you found through traditional recruitment?
No, it's a mix. For example, we built so when I started to like growing the product at the very beginning, I hired a full stack developer to help me kind of speed up the process.
Mm-hmm.
And that person now is our CTO. So we kind
Okay.
of closely worked together for about 6-7 months to build like really the first early features or core features of the product. Um, our head of growth hired him 4 months ago. Uh, maybe it was already too late. We're desperately looking for someone. And one thing I really like when talking to people or during the hiring process is to see how detailed they can get, because it's always easy, especially nowadays with ChatGPT and so on. Always easy to come up with some broad language of you have to focus on
Yeah.
this and that.
Mm-hmm.
But when someone can be really detailed up to I will schedule 5 calls and then I will try to see this, like really, really detail into those specific tasks. Then you kind of see their skills and how impactful they can get.
So you mean like them projecting themselves into your role? Okay, so unless talking about examples from the past.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so I was gonna ask you how do you decide to hire people, but you basically already answered the question. Um,
That's one thing. And then the next thing is, so usually like people are looking for um, great talents or great team members to join them. What I also found out is that sometimes these people can also be great source of hiring. Like for example, our CTO, he's great at finding engineers talent. Like I totally trust him and his decisions. So that's like another source of way of growing the team, or our head of growth is great at finding people for the growth, for product, for marketing. So it kind of also again helps with the whole decision making, where I don't have to be the only person making those decisions.
that is actually a really good insight because sometimes people are just really good at execution, but not good at recognizing like good talent in other people. So this is a key insight for hiring. I'm gonna have to ask this question because I want to go a little bit outside of decision making more because full disclosure, designers like somebody with a heavy design background, I haven't had a lot of them on the podcast yet. So, what's your take on the whole, AI in design? Is it democratizing it? Is it making it more mediocre? So basically, how do you draw the line between AI assisted and AI authored?
Um, well, I think AI raises the baseline for everyone. So even someone with no design background can design something, if it's a product design, UX design, or even illustration, or whatever thing that we can talk about. They can already start from a higher baseline and a better place. But because that baseline affects everyone, so a professional will still have the edge because they
Right.
can see what's good. They can curate ideas much better. They can spot patterns, or even in the language they use for the prompt. They can use a different kind of language. They can make reference. They can even describe what they want in a much better way. Kind of guide to some extent AI to get much better outcomes. So I think that's kind of where professionals still have an edge. So because of this kind of a taste, direction, and the way they would guide AI, uh, but it doesn't mean that what's generated by someone or what's created with AI by someone who's not a designer has no value, because we are all better off now with AI. Uh, we will see better designs, better layouts, better experience being built versus before, where you either relied on the help of a designer if you had the budget, or just use a template, or just created something horrible.
I don't even know which category I precisely belong to. Probably to a couple, but I do have some, let's say, training in design. So I have some like basic knowledge, which, to your point, really really helps because when your tool, say even Lovable, produces something for me, I can sometimes spot immediately what is it that I don't think is like a good layout, or maybe I guess how sections are pointed out, etc. What would you like? Have you maybe seen examples of prompts that UX pilot users have used where you're like, whoa, okay, you just hacked the system, like something that maybe like blew you away with how the prompt was structured and the result that they got out of it?
um, I don't have anything specific in mind, but one thing is, so I have usually interviews or calls with users to just go over their experience, how they use the tool, and often they share their screen and they kind of walk me through how they use the tool. And often I come across designs and I'm like, wow, was that generated with UX Pilot? Like because of the structure or the things they managed to create with the tool. I'm myself like impressed oftentimes. And definitely it has to do with how they structure their ideas, like either through UX Pilot, or also a lot of users, they use ChatGPT because they have their research, all the documentation inside ChatGPT, and they use that to summarize or kind of create uh, some structure for their project or for their ideas, and then use that again inside UX Pilot, or bring it and adjust it inside UX Pilot to generate designs. But I don't have like anything specific in mind how they do it.
But that was another good insight, and full disclosure, that's what I personally do. Like
Hmm?
most of the time when I need to write a design prompt, I just run it through ChatGPT in my like project folder that already has context on what I'm doing, and would also structure it in a way that I think is better readable by another AI. So yeah, that's I think a really good hack, so to say.
Coming back, just coming back to the whole thing of
Mhm.
features or building something or not, that's something like we're still not sure about, because we do see a lot of people using ChatGPT that way. So the idea is, do we want to like build this whole uh, part of taking your ideas, your research, your data, and bring it into UX Pilot so they don't have to go into ChatGPT, or it's just ChatGPT is so much anchored into everyone's usage that that might just be a waste of effort and time. So that's something we're still thinking about internally.
I think that's a really good question to have because, I mean, if you asked me as one of your users, I would say I would love to have everything in one place so I
Mhm.
don't have to juggle between, ChatGPT and then UX Pilot. And what you're describing, what it sounds to me like, is like a separate agent that just helps you write a better prompt that would then send it to your main LLM that would actually handle the prompt for the design. Like I would love that because that makes my work a lot more efficient, and I know that it's already going to be tailored for your system anyways,
Mhm.
because we all know that ChatGPT can produce tons of different variations depending on how you prompt it to. Do
Okay,
you
good to
guys
know.
Do you guys have any plans for? I know you shared with me right before the call. You're working more on content and making sure you basically arm users with content that will help them obviously get the best out of the platform. Do you also Are you planning on any, let's say, community building, as in maybe having some online and offline events and whatnot?
Um, Events, I'm not sure. So the earliest thing that is kind of planned is Web Summit in Lisbon. So we will be there, like three, four team members. We will be there. We'll have a stand there as well, kind of a also opportunity to meet users or people interested in the product on site. But we are definitely working on making the community more valuable to users. So far, it's been mainly a way to announce new features or just handle support cases, questions, and so on, and less on proactively coming up with new ways of using the tool, new ways of improving the design process, and so on. So that's something we're definitely going to focus on next.
I would say a good example here and what I was getting at. Are you familiar with the company called Hey Reach?
Yeah.
Basically, so I think they have been doing stellar job in community building lately because they're sharing all this basically straightforward use cases from their own users. Like, this is how I built this workflow. This is the results I got, which I think would be like extremely applicable in your case too. As in, like, this is how we have prototyped this high fidelity thing, and this is like how we managed to get to that result, which I think is always super effective because then it's like literally an instruction that you can follow if you're struggling with this exact issue. At least that's what I've been doing with Hey Rich's content. I'm like, oh my God, this is exactly for me. This is for my workflow.
True. Yeah. Definitely something, again, uh, there's not enough hours in a day to
Right.
to focus on all that. But yeah, something we do see, like, there is a gap in educating users, helping them even further, empowering them, and how, because AI is, um, we do see, like, people sometimes consider AI as just something they can put on top of whatever they're doing in the past. But
Right.
there are certain workflows that are becoming obsolete, that you actually need to restructure your process around that. And that requires, obviously, more education and more content.
You know, another quick hack, maybe you're already doing it, but what I usually, and I would say I'm a junkie for tools. Like, I probably have like 25 running subscriptions because I just love exploring, and automation, or like rather like operational efficiency, I would put it this way, has been an obsession of mine lately. Like, how can I do the least amount of manual work, and how do I find the best tools to actually streamline what I'm doing? So I do enjoy when the platform offers some sort of a recurring onboarding call. So say it's like, I don't know, every Wednesday at 5 p.m., all the new users can join, and then they have an AMA at the end, Ask Me Anything, which is like the best part, because obviously like the first part can be just a recording because you can be showing the same thing. But what really helps is the AMA, because then you can just, type your question, and then the person demoing would be able to answer it, which for me unlocked several tools where I was about to churn as a user because I just couldn't, get my couldn't wrap my head around it. So something like that I think could be cool for you guys.
Great, great.
All of
Thanks for
that
the ideas.
all of a sudden this podcast interview turned into me offering you growth hacks. Sorry guys for small pivot here. Adam, next question I want to ask you is a little bit like look into the future, but more so less connected to UX pilot, but overall UX trends. What do you think is like the most nonsense current trend that you think is probably going to die out in the future?
Hmm. Related to AI, or just
Just
UX?
anything that you're like closely monitoring right now.
I don't
Probably
know.
related to AI, because I think everything is revolving around AI these days.
True. Well, one thing, design related. I don't know if it's in line with what you what you asked, but uh, I still do. I mean, I still see, like, people talking about it. But it was even more a few years ago. Are these whole um, design hacks or design tricks, how to, I don't know, build certain animations inside Figma, or how to move certain things inside Figma, and so on. And there were, like, little tricks that you would that were maybe nice to do or nice to focus on, but was not necessarily impacting the life of a UX designer or product designer, and even less now, I would say, just because how the role is changing or evolving. So very much like focusing on things that were, and oftentimes things that would not necessarily impact the product itself.
Right. What's your personal definition of good user experience?
So first of all, it should be functional. So depending on what you're trying to achieve, if you're trying to nudge users towards certain things, or if the task of that flow or if that experience is for users to achieve certain goals, they need to be able to achieve it as smooth as possible, like empower users. And on top, making sure the experience is memorable. It doesn't have to, but that's even better. So you can kind of remember that experience and the way you achieved that thing, either because it was simple or because it was delightful, and kind of all considering like you still managed to achieve your task.
Okay. Final question. What is the one thing that you learned on your UX pilot journey that you know today that you wish you could go back in time and tell yourself right before starting on that journey?
Um, I think around building the team, and that's also closely related to, well, we were bootstrapped, so we had some constraints to consider, but obviously knowing now how things turn out, I would I would do things differently. Is that when we started building the team, we kind of hired one person and then waited and then felt the pain and then hired another person and then waited and then felt the pain and then hired another one. And then I think 3 months, 4 months later, we said, okay, maybe we're doing something wrong. Let's hire 5 or 6 people at once. Uh, Maybe it's much more efficient. So, and of course, that was more efficient. So I would do that differently. I would just think about like the roles we would need and start just hiring them at once, or at least to some extent, um, instead of like doing it one by one.
I think we could like anchor it to maybe an analogy in healthcare, preventive care, really, basically anticipating what the next thing that would break in your body and taking care of it ahead of time. That's a really good practice as well. What is the best way for people to experience the product? Like, should just they go ahead and jump on a free trial, or would you rather them to schedule a demo call?
Yeah, I mean, the whole product is built is a PLG. So, and our focus is to empower users to kind of use it just by signing up for free, testing it, and hopefully they would see value and upgrade. So, yeah, just give it a try, test it out, and then if there are still questions, if you have like really specific requirements or feedback, just then feel free to reach out to our team or to our support.
And I'll say one last thing about UX Pilot. I really appreciate your transparent billing system, I guess usage-based system, because every time before I commit to the prompt, it actually tells me like how many credits I would burn. So I really appreciate that, for example, compared to Lovable, where you have no idea how many credits the next prompt is going to cost you. So kudos to that.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's it. That's all I have for today, Adam. It's been a very insightful conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, and thanks for for all your ideas and feedback.